regular monthly board meeting of the Ambridge Area School District Board of Directors on Wednesday, May 18th, 2022 is now called to order. Can we please rise for the flag salute? I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
This meeting is being recorded for district purposes. It is or may be published in part or in its entirety on the district's website without the express permission of meeting participants. Can I have a roll call, please?
Mr. Carpenter?
Here.
Mr. Cephas?
Here.
Mrs. Fisher?
Here.
Ms. Fitzko?
Here.
Mr. Keeber?
Here.
Mrs. Kehoe?
Here.
Mrs. Smith?
Here.
Mr. Zachi?
Here.
Mrs. Ramasco?
Here.
All present.
Thank you. The Board of School Directors held an executive session on Wednesday, May 18th to discuss
Personnel matters, matters subject to attorney-client privilege and other confidentiality laws, litigation or threatened litigation matters, sensitive public safety issues. And I also have a point of information. The annual School Safety and Security Board report was reviewed consistent with Act 44 of 2018.
Thank you. Is there any correspondence tonight?
No correspondence.
Thank you. Can I have a motion to accept the minutes of Tuesday, April 12th, meet and discuss non-voting and voting meeting, and Wednesday, April 20th, board meeting?
So moved.
Can I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes. Can I have a motion to accept Treasurer's report dated April 2022?
So moved.
Can I have a second?
I'll second.
Any board discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Are there any amendments to the agenda?
Yes, Madam President. Under Education and Technology this evening, we will be removing item number 3. It may be looked at again in the future, but we're going to remove it for this evening.
Thank you, Mrs. Smith. Moving on to recognition and presentation. Mrs. Kehoe, would you be able to recognize the Beaver County Career in Technology?
Yes, is Kinsey Lopez in the audience this evening? No, okay. Congratulations to Kenzie Lopez, 12th grade, for her induction into the National Technical Honor Society at the Beaver County Career and Technology Center. The purpose of the National Technical Honor Society is to reward excellence in workforce education, develop self-esteem, pride, and encourage students to reach for higher levels of achievement, promote businesses and industry-critical workplace values. Lindsay was also a prior recipient of the Marine Corps JROTC Parent Support Group scholarship, and her future plans include the United States Navy. So congratulations to Kinsey.
Congratulations. Mr. Zachi and Ms. Fitzko, if you could go down and recognize our athletes for this evening.
Okay, tonight we would like to recognize for the varsity Ambridge Avonworth Hockey Co-op, Mark, I cannot pronounce your name, Ron Swinter? I apologize. Congratulations. Next, we would like to recognize the middle school Ambridge Avonworth Hockey Co-op, winning back-to-back championships with a record of 12-2. Alexa Best, 7th grade, and Charlie Staffnick, 7th grade. Congratulations.
Congratulations to both of you. Mrs. Smith and Mr. Zacci, can you please go down and recognize our student from the musical and the Student of the Month and Extra Effort Award winners?
Musical one.
The first one.
Got it. This evening, we also wanted to recognize a special actress from the Ambridge Musical. We're going to congratulate Emily Dean, a current 11th grader, for receiving a Henry Mancini Musical Theater Award and the nomination for Best Supporting Actress as Aunt Eller in the school musical, Oklahoma. Is Emily here this evening? Congratulations, Emily. We're going to go to High School Student of the Month. April Students of the Month, 12th grade, Brandon Streb. 11th grade, Nora Best. 10th grade, Ava Timmons. 9th grade, Madeline Galenis. Moving on to high school extra effort. In April, we had 12th grader Christian Davis. 11th grade Elise Probst. I'm sorry if I have messed up your name. Tenth grade, Pietro Pucci. 9th grade, Anthony Spiker. Congratulations to them. For Middle School Student of the Month, we had 8th grader, Hallie Krasinski. 7th grader, Eleni Bratton. And 6th grade, Oliver Powell. Middle School Extra Effort Award, 8th grade, Justin Bishop. 7th grade, Jackson Kozak. And 6th grade, Rosie Ludovico. Congratulations to them as well. And one more, April Student of the Month at Economy Elementary, Miss Emma Pinchot. Congratulations to everybody.
Thank you. Congratulations, everybody. And thank you for those that came out tonight, and congratulations to those who hopefully will be watching at home. At this time, district residents may come forward to comment on agenda items only. Each person must state their first and last name and address prior to speaking. Each resident will be allowed only 3 minutes and can speak only once. This period for public comment prior to the standing committee reports will be limited to 1/2 hour. Although not required, board members desiring to address questions or concerns may do so after the residents' comments and questions or at the conclusion of the committee reports. There will still be an opportunity for residents to comment on any business relevant to the Ambridge Area School District under old and new business at the end of the meeting. Do we have anybody who wishes to speak tonight about agenda items? Okay, moving on to committee reports. Under Education and Technology, Mrs. Smith and Mr. Zachi.
I'm making a motion to accept numbers 1 and 2 and 4 through 9, since number 3 was eliminated earlier.
Can I have a second?
I'll second.
Do we have any board discussion? Okay, can I have a roll call, please?
Mr. Carpenter?
Yes.
Mr. Cephas?
Yes.
Mrs. Fisher?
Yes.
Ms. Fitzko?
Yes.
Mr. Keever?
Yes.
Mrs. Kehoe?
Yes.
Mrs. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Zachi?
Yes.
Mrs. Ramasco?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Under Finance and Budget and Buildings and Grounds, Mr. Carpenter and Mr. Keeber.
Yes, I'd like to make a motion to approve 1 through 10 as written.
Second.
Any board discussion? Can I have a roll call, please?
Mr. Carpenter?
Yes.
Mr. Cephas?
Yes.
Mrs. Fisher?
Yes.
Ms. Fitzko?
Yes.
Mr. Keever?
Yes.
Mrs. Kehoe?
Yes.
Mrs. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Zachi?
Yes.
Mrs. Ramasco?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Athletics and Public Relations, there are no voting items this evening. Under Steering and Rules and Legislative, Mrs. Kehoe and Mrs. Fisher.
Yes, I'd like to move for the adoption of items 1 through 7.
Can I have a second?
Second.
Any board discussion? Can I have a roll call, please?
Mr. Carpenter?
Yes.
Mr. Cephas?
Yes.
Mrs. Fisher?
Yes.
Ms. Fitzko?
Yes.
Mr. Keever?
Yes.
Mrs. Kehoe?
Yes.
Mrs. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Zachi?
Yes.
Mrs. Ramasco?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Under Personnel and Salary Schedule and Labor Relations, Mr. Cephas and Mrs. Smith.
You got it, Mrs. Smith? or you want me to
Sure.
take it?
Under Personnel and Salary Schedule and Labor Relations, I move for the adoption of items 1 through 10 this evening.
Can I have a second, please?
Second.
Any board discussion? Can I have a roll call, please?
Mr. Carpenter?
Yes.
Mr. Cephas?
Yes.
Mrs. Fisher?
Yes.
Ms. Fitzko?
Yes.
Mr. Keever?
Yes.
Mrs. Kehoe?
Yes.
Mrs. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Zachi?
Yes.
Mrs. Ramasco?
Yes.
Motion carries.
I do not have anything under President's Address for this evening. Solicitor Turnbull,
No, just,
anything to report?
no, just to thank you. And I enjoy working with you, and I hope to continue doing that in the future. My thanks.
Thank you. Under Superintendent's Report, Dr. Pascarella.
Yes, just wanted to congratulate the students from the list today, and also let everyone of you know how much we enjoyed the many concerts that went on this spring season. I thought we showcased some excellent talent, and they were good show, as well as our athletics and all of the art too. There's a lot of art in the buildings if you got a chance to see that. So really proud of all the kids, students, staff, and community, and excited to try to finish a very good year up. Thank you.
Thank you. It is now time for old and new business. Any district resident who desires to comment on any business relevant to the Ambridge Area School District should now come forward. Each person must state their first and last name and address prior to speaking. Each person will be allowed 3 minutes and can speak only once.
Hello, I'm Tammy Girardi, 215 Brookside Drive, Baden, Pennsylvania, 15005. I'm here to request that the current rules for possession of weapons be revised. I feel just like the Constitution, there comes a time to revise every set of rules. There was a situation this morning where my daughter, who works and closes a store at night in the dark, had pepper spray on her keychain, drove to school today. Normally she would take it off her keychain, it's clipped right to her keys, but she failed to do that. She forgot, just like we all forget things. It wasn't concealed, she had it out in the open. However, she's told she cannot graduate. She happens to be the salutatorian. She's worked very hard all these years, 12 years of school, 12 years where she never got called down to the office, not once. This girl deserves to walk with her class. She's worked all these years. She made one little mistake and forgot one thing. I think that if you had a child, you would think twice and think the same thing of yours. I mean, if it should be revised, or each case should be on an individual basis and not just looking at the words in the book and saying, oh, you had a weapon in school, you can't come in, you can't come for 10 days, you can't participate and do anything with your classmates that you've worked so hard for. That's no way to reward somebody in your school, and that's no way to leave your alma mater and think of the school, all those 12 years of school in that way. So I ask for you to consider voting tonight so that she can also participate in all the things that she has worked so very hard for. She is in the National Honor Society. She's an officer in the National Honor Society. She's salutatorian, and she's always been accelerated in all of her years since second grade in school. And she's a star student. That's all I can say. And I'm not saying that because she's my child. You can ask anybody, any student or any teacher in the school district, and they would agree. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anybody else who wishes to address the board this evening?
Hi, you guys all know me already. Brittany Heisong, 393 Daly Avenue, Baden. A couple things I just wanted to get up here. I didn't see it on the agenda tonight, but I wanted to just bring it up for my first point that I wanted to bring up. I know that the district is trying to save money and with their budget. I am an insurance agent, and our agency was going to give the school a quote, possibly. Beaver Valley Independent Insurance Group. I believe that was supposed to be voted on. I'm not sure tonight, but soon, as to which agency you would give the okay to do a quote for the school district. I just wanted to bring this up because I know that I have been fighting to keep my children's elementary school open, State Street, and I am talking as not an agent per se, but as a parent, that I am all in to try to save our small school. And with that being said, being an insurance agent, our agency would try our best to save the district as much money as possible with many different insurance aspects. So I wanted to throw that in there just to, I know you guys know that I am all in to save State Street. I am very vocal about that. And I just want to do as much as I can as a parent, as a PTO member, as a district resident, to help any way that I can. Helping retain students, helping get new students, helping save the district money, things like that. The reason why I'm bringing this up is because there have been rumors, I don't know if they're true or not, some board member relatives have been going around saying that State Street is still on the chopping block to close, basically, and that it's going to be brought back up in the summer when nobody is really paying attention. I don't know if some board members are aware of that, if all board members are aware of that. So I just wanted to bring that to the table to the board members who possibly aren't aware of what other board members are thinking about doing. I also received the email about the appraisal of State Street. It was $2,800, and I was told that the district is going to be paying that. I wasn't sure if that's even possible that the district is now having to pay for that, because a board member can't spend over $500 without a vote, and I don't believe I was told that there was a retroactive vote that happened about that appraisal. The appraisal was done on the school, and it was appraised for $235,000. That doesn't seem like a lot to me. A lot of homes in our area are selling for way more than that. So it doesn't really make sense to me of even still putting the idea of closing State Street on the table if you're gonna get pretty much pennies for a building. That just seems like it's pennies compared to what we need for our budget. So that just doesn't really seem like a really, good idea to close the school for that little money. It will be spent in a year and our kids won't have their school. So I just wanted to bring that up. That's pretty much all. I just hope that everybody on the board reconsiders about State Street. If that does get back on the table, we're begging you. We are trying, the PTO and I, or my fellow PTO members, we're just really trying. And I'm gonna get teary-eyed up here, but we're really doing a lot to try to save our school. And I know that it's probably sounding like a broken record to board members, but we're really trying, and we really, really hope that you see how much we're trying and that you really put that on the back burner and completely forget about it. And hopefully the rumors that we're hearing are completely untrue. And if they are true, that some board members who don't know about that start to figure out who's working behind the scenes without other board members. That's all. Thank you.
So a couple things, if you want to, you can stay so we can respond. I think there were 4, I didn't write them all down, but the first one, I believe, I'm not sure about that one. If you want to address the insurance, I don't know anything about that.
Yes, so, I mean, basically, we were going to provide some information to the board about some current contracts that are there. We did not get to speak to that, but we intend on speaking to that. In general, I'll give a general public update to that, and that is that we have a current carrier, and Brittany would know this better than I, but basically brokers go out to get insurance from a variety of folks that do this and try to get the best pricing for the district. And they're usually annually that they are up, so it's something to consider. Who you want. There's some potential savings, and we're always looking for savings. So I think that's kind of where we're at on that, and that we would be getting back to you after I've had a chance to give information to the board about that. There's not necessarily a vote, and it's my belief that if the board is interested in allowing us to get other brokerage and quotes and those types of things, that's something they would do. They would officially vote once one was accepted. So we've been busy, but we do intend on speaking to that. So thank you for your work and bringing up a variety of cost savings along with the rest of your folks on your team. We appreciate it.
So then to some of your other points, I just want you and everybody to understand that, well, first of all, I don't know anything about the rumors that you're talking about the State Street, bringing it back up in the summer when no one's here. I don't know anything about that personally. That's all I can say personally. As far as the rest of State Street, we have spent countless hours, many board members, and especially the administration, looking to find just like you are. You're coming up with all these wonderful ideas of how maybe the district can save money, and we've been doing the same thing and trying as hard as we can to find different ways to be able to do that. And so that was just one way that could have potentially saved money. And so the appraisal that you're talking about, you gave your opinion on that. And so that's a piece of information that is used to determine, right? That meeting was therefore canceled, and at this point has not been talked about again. Now, the only thing that I can say that we probably will do at some point, I'm sure, is there might be some pieces of information that come out, just as we promised we would give you, about the district and the reasons why and the budget and that's what really we've been doing with the budget presentations. And as you can see, the administration has done a great job in the past, month and a half or so that we've been working on the budget, coming from being in a very, very difficult position to a position that brings us to a much more comfortable place. And so that, I can't say to you that that's never going to come up again as a conversation item, but it's certainly not on anybody's radar to discuss at least as far as I am aware, that's not anything that's going to be discussed at the immediate moment.
Okay. Yeah, it's been brought up to a lot of people that it's going to get brought up over the summer, not just one person. So just wanted to address it just to see if that was true, or maybe one board member knew about it, all of you knew about it. I don't know. Somebody's been going around saying that to a lot of people.
Okay.
So just wanted to, like I said, address that and just kind of see
So-
see why.
Yeah. Just a couple things. It was brought to my attention at the Title I event, and it kind of took me by surprise in full transparency. And I will go on the record and say this. I speak for myself, not for another person up here. I'm not in support of any school closures unless it's comprehensively, financially, in all aspects of the district is going to be 1,000% beneficial. Okay, I haven't heard about this new summer ordeal or whatever is happening, but I want you to hear from my lips to your ears that I haven't heard it and I don't support it unless it's holistically going to support or initiatives moving forward. Okay. Second thing, to the parent back there, I agree with you. We should not be, painting with a broad brush, okay? So I want to put that on record when it comes to these disciplinary things. Again, this may rub some folks the wrong way, but I want to be on the record in a full transparent way to let you know that, and I don't know you from a can of paint, but if what you're saying about your daughter and her record, I didn't have a chance to look and all that, listen, we should not be painting with a broad brush. I just want to put that on record, and I agree with you in your recommendation.
Thank you.
I'll go on record as well. Brittany, I don't know anything about
Okay.
conversations that were in regards to State Street at all. I could tell you I was not a part of any of the conversations, nor would I be. That's board discussion. I think that would need to be considered, from the board as a whole and not just one or
Right.
two board members.
Right.
So
Okay.
I would never be a part of something like that, and I just want to make it clear that
Thanks.
that would not be the case as far
Okay.
as I'm concerned. I can't speak for anybody else, but I'll speak for myself.
Okay.
I think that was all of the questions. I think we
The
covered them
retroactive
all.
vote
Oh,
for
the
the
retroactive
appraisal,
vote.
was that ever completed?
So my understanding, so you could see that it was my office at the district's direction that commissioned that appraisal. You could see that the invoice says WBK at the top. It would have been attached to a legal bill or transmitted as part of that, and then approved by the board, probably in conjunction with a legal bill.
Okay, did the board know about voting, like the retroactive, they knew about that, what you were saying?
So the board gets a copy of the list of bills
Okay.
every month and has access to the detail to the extent that they request it. You do not have a copy of the list of bills?
No, I actually went through the budget documents that are attached. There's not like a check ledger or anything like that. It's very broad as like expenditures, revenues, whatever, but not detailed, not like what you're saying.
Can we
And I just want
possibly
to go
get
on
that?
record too to say I've never been part of any discussion regarding closing State Street. I don't know who's having those discussions. I could tell you this, I'm not a part of that.
Okay, thank you.
Can we possibly get a detailed record? We can discuss that, but that's something that we can possibly,
Do we
Look
not
into.
get a list of checks
we do.
that are issued? So what solicitor's saying is that it would say her law firm for a certain amount, but that 2,800 would be in that amount.
Correct.
So unless we specifically asked for the detailed bill of her law firms, we would not know what's specifically in that amount that we're approving for her firm.
Yeah, if that's what you're saying, is you don't have, then that would be.
We don't have that. We don't get detailed bills. We get a check register of everything that's going out.
Right, and that's when I say the list of
So if we
bills,
owe her
that's what I'm referring
$20,000, that 28's going to be in there, and unless we ask for a detailed bill of what we're paying whom, then we don't know what's the detail
The
of that.
question was, is if we saw it, and so the answer is
The answer is no, because she explained that it was within her legal bill, so
I
that's
understand that,
where it
but what I'm
is.
saying is there's no check register attached to that.
So you don't get a check paying this person for this much
No.
for this much. You don't see that every month that gets
That's
sent
not in
out?
my board documents.
Okay.
You're part of the finance committee.
Yeah, there's quite a lengthy list that comes out. But we will look into it.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. Anybody else that would like to comment on anything at this point?
Hi, good evening, everyone. My name's Laura Shakespeare. I live at 503 Strop Avenue in Baden. I'm part of the State Street PTO. I'm the secretary for the PTO board. We had an exciting event yesterday and today. We had a book fair for our students in our gymnasium. And I just wanted to bring to light a little security issue that we had that happened. One of the school board members attended our event as a PTO volunteer, and during the event said that they needed to go down to the library and asked another school board member's wife to come to the library as well. The wife said, "I don't want any part of that." The school board member proceeded to go to the library, come back, went to the library. Let me back up. I said, what's in the library? The school board member said, I'm looking for something I've requested a few times, and I'm going to go look for it. So the school board member goes to the library, comes back, says, what I was looking for wasn't in the library, so I'm going to text your husband some pictures. This was to the wife of the school board member. So this school board member was signed in as a PTO parent. And when we have parents come in under PTO, everybody gets a tag that has their name, their face, and where they're supposed to be. Today it was in the gymnasium. So our concern is that what are we as a PTO supposed to do when somebody comes in as a volunteer and we find them roaming the halls or where they're not supposed to be, even if they have clearances, because you can't get into the building without clearances. My other question is, what was the school board member looking for? What was the request that wasn't answered? As part of PTO, I'll speak for my co-chairs. We are happy to help the school board in any way we can. I think we've made that very clear that we're passionate about our school, about our community. And if you guys need an answer or have a question, please feel free to reach out to one of us, and we'll get that answer for you.
You can do that one.
One comment before. One comment. I did receive, a call and spoke, and I don't know all of the details, but I did share that from where I sit, although any visitor that is signed in with clearances, especially working with the PTO, should be in the location in the event. There are times, as I indicated, where, folks do go to other areas of a building to help out in different ways. And I felt that, if there were major concerns or something, they should bring that to the principal or, and then work its way up to me if necessary. But that if the person was authorized to be there and had clearances, there are times where you have to, example, hey, we ran out of this, can you go see if you could get more of that? You understand what I mean? And there's going to be times where you're going to leave that area. That's what we discussed. And that if it seems reasonable, I don't think there's any reporting that was necessary. We agreed to that. Well, I stated that, I don't say agreed to. But if you felt like something was, not going well, then you should definitely, anybody in the building, you should let the administration know so that we can look into it. So before we started, I just wanted to say that you did, and I do appreciate before you coming to the school board that you did give me an opportunity to speak to that, and that you did inform me, and you informed your principal first, as I understand it, and I appreciate that as well. So the only thing I could say is I don't know the reasons, as I stated to you on the phone, I'm not sure what the reasons were, but in general, unless we have major concerns, I just want to be clear to all PTO. Yes, you have to sign in, you have to have clearances, or supposed you can be, but our buildings are welcoming and people are able to move throughout those buildings as well. I think that's what we discussed, and I appreciate you. I wanted to acknowledge going through the chain of the command to bring that.
Absolutely.
I appreciate that.
Thank you for that response, too.
I'll tell you, it was me. I mean, I'll be honest, it was me. What I had asked for and what I was looking for is I had asked for in the library for book carts, we had discussed at one point, to be made up for the classrooms for the teachers. I was looking to see if that had been done because I hadn't been in the school in a while, and from what I was told, I can only speak for second grade. They didn't have access to any of those books. I was looking to see if the book carts were made. They were not.
Thank you for responding. I appreciate that. And I would like to say that my understanding is that the book cards have been made, so maybe we can work together to figure out where they're at.
I was going to say I saw one cart, and it was just a bunch of books. It wasn't I was just trying to get the kids access to books, and that's what I was looking to see if it was done.
I appreciate that. I understand your heart in this situation, and hopefully you can understand my concern as being the representative of the PTO board that was there, that witnessed this happen.
Right.
And I guess my follow-up question is, where is the line between school board authority and are you allowed to conduct school board business during PTO time, or is that supposed to be a separate appointment?
Sort of. I mean, it was.
book cards. It sounds like PTO action.
It's
I don't know who.
actually supposed to be someone else within the district.
Who was that?
It's actually supposed to be someone else within the district.
It doesn't sound like a safety concern.
No.
It may just be her overstepping a little bit.
Yes, and that was my fault. I apologize. But it was in between classes. I was just looking to see if carts were made up for the children so the teachers and the students have access to those books that are sitting there.
So just on that topic then, can we just check into that?
Sure can.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you, and I would like to thank every one of you sitting on the board. I know you could be 1,000 different places, spending time at your baseball games with your children, but instead you're here in the chairs. And I just want to thank you for your time as well as your families for the time that they're sacrificing so that you can be here. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other comments this evening?
I did want to make one more comment.
Yeah, sure.
I just forgot to mention, and I wanted to thank, the entire staff and community who came out, parents, Mr. King, our entire staff, really, Dr. Filipowski, the teachers, the PTOs, the community members, the coaches, everyone who came out to a wonderful event on Saturday. The rain held off. Sometimes that works out for you. And we really had a nice event. So everybody who was a part, the custodians who helped make that happen, to the parents and students that attend, and everyone, I forgot to mention that, and I wanted to make sure that I did, and thanked everybody for a wonderful event.
I've heard wonderful things since the event also, so I think it was a great thing for the community and look forward to having more of those in the future. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Hi, I am Katie Sipes, 1001 Charles Street in Baden. Sorry, I kind of look like a wet mess. Just came from baseball, so.
You are totally fine.
Yeah, Matt, our kids weren't doing the best, so, but it's okay. So I just kind of wanted to bring up that situation again, Amy. I don't want any beef with you or anything like that, but as the PTO president, I do see that as a safety concern. I'm not saying, it could have been anybody that was in that gym wandering the halls for some odd reason. It happened to just be you doing, your due diligence as the school board member. But it could have been a safety issue. It could have been a random person, a parent that got their clearances, volunteered, and said, hey, just wandered around and went into the bathroom, and you guys could probably picture the rest. So as the PTO, what are we supposed to do in those kind of instances? How do we address this? What do we do with the parents? We don't have consequences for that kind of situation. So what would you guys do if you saw a parent wandering the halls, going somewhere where they're not supposed to be?
I would go to the principal, I'll be honest with you. That would be my first.
Yeah, and
would go to Ms.
What are they supposed to do? What
So
actions?
that's kind of what we had discussed, right? That anytime you see something that seems like a concern, you bring it to the principal. The principal should have knowledge, and we'll look into the situation and see whether or not it is an issue or not. They should know who, in large part, are in their buildings and what they're there for. And there are going to be things that happen, as I stated earlier, and all of you probably know this better than I, being PTO members, it's an endless job, and one thing always leads into another. So sometimes you end up helping somewhere where you didn't even know you were going to help that day. So that was my only point. But if you ever feel, and I would encourage anyone, a student, a teacher, yourself, have a concern, you just bring it to the office immediately, because then it can be addressed and see if it is a problem or it isn't. That is what I was indicating on the call today, and I still feel that That would be my best advice on how to handle it.
Okay, thank you. And I wanted to just bring up, Amy, there is no reason to be very aggressive towards the people at State Street. I hear the things that you say, and I've heard the, very aggressive way that you've been talking, especially around, Zachi's wife and stuff like that. There's no reason to be very aggressive. Whenever you joined the PT or the school board and you got nominated and voted in, you said you were going after teachers and staff members and getting them removed from their positions. And I have the texts and stuff like that to have proof. And so I just want you to take this lesson and move forward and try to be better, try to do better, because everybody at State Street is just trying to get by. Continue to keep going. Don't be aggressive towards them. If you have a question about the books and the cards, call us. Call me, whatever. I'll find out. Or call Miss Bev. She'll find out for you too. Nobody is here to attack you.
Thank you.
And I also wanted to add about the poor situation that's going on. That's happened actually in the past, back in, I want to say 2012, with a former classmate of mine with pepper spray, same situation, had it in her keys, and she was able to still graduate and attend graduation. She was, unfortunately, got suspended for a day, but she still was able to graduate. So I really hope that you guys take care of her and everything, because it sounds like she's an amazing student with a bright future. So I would hope that, one little mistake doesn't ruin her future, and I hope you guys aren't part of that.
I'm not sure what they're talking about, but I'd like to give a shout out to the boys volleyball team. Boys varsity volleyball team is heading to the second round of playoffs. They did win Tuesday against Deer Lakes, and they're playing this Thursday. Anybody know who against who?
At NA Gateway,
Against Gateway. So good luck to the
6
boys.
o'clock.
Volleyball, was that?
6 o'clock tomorrow.
6 o'clock tomorrow.
They might actually be in the gym. They were in the gym when we came in practicing, so they might be there on the way.
I saw volleyball go.
So
Okay, there you go.
little piece. Online tickets are sold whenever you get to playoffs. They don't sell them at the door typically. And if you see a volleyball player, tell them good luck.
Mr. Zachi, you had something?
No, he said it. I was going to thank him for Saturday.
Oh, okay. For her to get back, just stand. Sorry, one moment.
Let's do that. You want to stay right here? Sure. I'm gonna do my first motion. That feels like America's Got Talent. I'm gonna make a motion to amend the agenda
To add the following item.
to add the following items. My solicitor's here. A motion to suspend the relevant portions of the disciplinary,
The weapons policy
of the weapons policy
relating to pepper spray.
related to pepper spray, mace, and similar like items.
So it's a motion to amend
All right.
to add that to the agenda now.
So that's an amendment that, added to the agenda right here,
Second.
right now, today.
I think when we get to
And
the next,
to say
the
that-
action portion. So this is just to the agenda, amend the agenda, bring it on. get to the next part. So the first step procedurally, so this is a motion to amend the agenda. The Sunshine Law now requires that the agenda be posted as the board will adopt it and consider all the items 24 hours in advance. This item is not presently on the agenda. We will say that it arose within 24 hours of the critical item came to the board's attention within 24 hours, and also doesn't involve money, it involves policy, and so it would be permissible under the Sunshine Law if there's a second for the board to amend the agenda and to proceed with a discussion of an actual motion at that point. There'd be a second step there and allow for public comment. Second to amend the agenda.
Right, after the board comment, then it would be public discussion. Correct? Okay. Can I have a second, please?
I'll second the motion to
Okay, thank you.
amend, but I want to discuss.
So we need we'll then take a vote to amend the agenda. A roll call.
Can I have a roll call on a vote to amend the agenda? So this
Bring
is
this
not,
to the floor.
This is just bringing it to the floor.
Mr. Carpenter?
Yes.
Mr. Cephas?
Yes.
Mrs. Fisher?
This is correct, just to bring it before the board for discussion.
Correct.
Yes.
Ms. Fitzko?
Yes.
Mr. Keeber?
Yes.
Mrs. Kehoe?
Yes.
Mrs. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Zachi?
Yes.
Mrs. Romasco?
Yes.
Motion carries.
So at this point, a member of the board could make a specific motion with the language that you would intend or that you would want considered and adopted by the board.
Okay, so that would be me. And what I would like to propose to the board and to the public that we absolutely got to revisit pertaining to pepper spray and devices of the like, of how we want to issue disciplinary action. I personally would prefer an individualistic, sort of progressive disciplinary sort of scale, not a broad brush. So if that requires for us to suspend the policy as it sits today, I am in favor of doing that while we work throughout the summer or however, whenever, tonight, who cares, to get this right. It's burning my soul.
What's the language of your motion? Because
Suspend the policy as it sits today as we rework the policy.
I take suspending the policy as not having that policy anymore. And then you have 15 kids show up tomorrow with pepper spray and they're allowed in school. I'm not saying I'm against it. I'm saying it has to be worded correctly so that we don't have actions the next 9 days of school.
Sure, so we can always add an amendment that it's at the discretion of the superintendent while we work on a more permanent solution.
Mr. Cephas, 1 second. Solicitor Turnbull is going to look at our levels, our offense levels. So that's going to take 1 second.
And I have printed the weapons policy, which said this is where the policy that we're talking about right now is 218.1 weapons. There is, and so as I understand the motion, I think as I understand the intention of the motion, we still need a second on a motion, but just to kind of get us going, there's a definition of weapon. It includes lots of things, but it includes specifically any propellant such as pepper spray and mace. And so my understanding is that the board's concern right now is limited to that one phrase. Is that correct?
Yes, obviously, pepper spray serves its purpose, but in my viewpoint, it's not a firearm. I feel like we can frame it in a way that it just makes a little bit more sense than it sits today.
So I think it would probably make most sense, and we'll see when Solicitor Turnbull gets that up on her screen. It would probably make most sense to suspend per a specific level of our handbook code.
Can we just have a little more discussion on what we're actually tabling?
Well, I don't mean to interrupt you. So what will happen is a motion will actually be stated in that particular, whatever that motion is, and then we can discuss it. Does that make sense? Unless you want to, you can discuss at any point.
I was going to ask Dr. Pastorella a question. Dr. Pasquarella, have you had instances of these kinds of infractions throughout the course of this past year? And if so, what kind of, what has been administered from a disciplinary perspective in those cases?
So to answer that question, you can't specifically talk about student discipline of any individual student. That being said, we have had other incidences of weapons violations, including those that are dealing with propellants such as pepper spray and mace. And to answer that question, I have recommended consistently throughout my years as a superintendent the same punishment for that. And recently, as in the fall, that has been shifted a bit, in due part not on my own, but in due part of, as it turned out at the end of a hearing from the board. And from that point forward, I held that punishment consistently that was changed. So I think the key word is consistency. And I would say I would have preferred to keep my way as consistent, but if it's going to change, it needs to be consistent for everybody. And if you were to make any changes, those changes should be made going into another year, in my opinion. And just since you brought it up and allowed me to have the opportunity to speak, I would tell you I would not recommend as the school superintendent in the minutes, I'll go on record saying that, the changing or suspension of this policy for the safety of all students.
Dr. Pasquarella, understanding you're not able to speak about specifics, but in these particular cases, could you speak to the term of suspension in these similar cases? Or is that not suitable?
I could say that if you look in the policy and in the handbook, it could be up to 1 year, I believe. And it does reserve the right at the discretion of the super. Okay. Well, I had my policy, but you have it now. I'm trying to do this without there. And I'm not going to go back and forth. I'll just answer your questions.
So at this point, we're in board discussion, and there is going to be a point for public discussion after the board makes their final motion and then seconds their motion. And then there will be board discussion and public discussion, and then we will vote. So you will have time, anybody who's in attendance, to come up to the microphone at that point and make a public comment.
I mean, I'm not going to go back and forth, but to read that, it says the school district shall expel for a period of not less than 1 year any student who violates this weapons policy. Such expulsion shall be given in conformance with the formal due process hearings required by law. The superintendent may recommend modifications of such expulsion requirements on a case-by-case basis.
So real quick, to be clear, so that motion or that amendment is to adopt a level 1 penalty, if you will, effective and including today through the end of the school year. Is that right, Solicitor?
Correct. I think those are the components that you were.
Thank you.
Solicitor Turnbull,
I'm sorry,
what
I'm
is
sorry.
the level of offense in the handbook? Can you tell us that?
So I believe that it's a level 4, I think. Level 4 includes weapons violations. And so that language, which is on page 16 of the student handbook, then ties back to this policy that we were just referencing, which is 218.1, and that's our weapons policy. And that place defines what a weapon is. There's another place in our student handbook, again, in terms of like primacy of authority, the board policy is first and foremost. The board has control over both the handbook and the policy. It is only in extreme situations that we do this, and certainly the fact that you have only a handful of days left, I'm sure, is playing into your decision making as you were going to review this policy over the summer, as it was.
So is this,
Do we have a motion?
I think
I'm writing it down,
I
sorry.
think we're trying to construct that.
And just for context, for the public, I wasn't on the board, okay, in the fall. This is just something, this is new to me.
7 of us.
I'm sorry?
7 of us weren't.
Well, 7 of us weren't. And, you know, just listening to the details that came to light to me, I'm making a decision based off of my own understanding. So I can't speak for what happened in the fall and all of that. So if you're thinking why now, it's because I just found out, you know, the circumstances and the situation, so.
So the motion that I hear with the components discussed so far would be a motion to suspend the relevant portions of policy 218.1, the weapons policy relating to pepper spray and mace, to possession of pepper spray and mace, and to make simple possession of those items a level 1 offense, effective and including May 18th, 2022, pending further board review of the policy and the handbook.
I would like to add one potential thing to that. If that is the case, they will still be confiscated upon arrival at the school building. Would that still be the case under a level 1 regardless? Do we need to add that?
I think you could. I think you could.
It would
add
need
that.
added.
Yeah.
So, do I need to make a motion to add that?
No, because we don't even have a
We're
second
still-
on the motion.
right.
We're still just we're doing
Okay.
a collaborative crafting exercise right now.
So since we were talking about 9 days, I think it's 9 days from now, we're talking about the suspension of this policy for the next 9 days, because to be perfectly honest, we have been in discussion about these types of things, and I know, a lot of us are brand new to the board, so we are, like Mr. Sifa said, we are not privy to what went on prior to us getting on the board, and so we had already discussed that, there would be talks about the handbook and things like that in the summer. So I do know that other school districts around us have also been discussing this as things have arose. I mean, changes in the community happen all the time. Changes in policies happen in different districts and things like that. So it's something that we're all aware of and looking into and trying to research. And so I guess from my standpoint, my biggest concern is that it would still be confiscated upon arrival at the school building, because obviously that is still the concern. So once we have this motion,
Okay, so as I understand it, with those parts so far, it would be a motion to suspend the relevant portions of the weapons policy, policy 218.1, relating to simple possession of pepper spray, mace, or similar items, and to make simple possession a level 1 offense, subject to confiscation effective and including May 18th, 2022 until the conclusion of the 2021-22 school year.
I would like to ask one more thing, I'm sorry. Under similar items, is there a specific reason to have similar items in there? I just think it's a little bit questionable as far as what that would entail. Does it have to be
It
similar
doesn't.
items?
It doesn't.
Okay.
I think we have one of our either the policy, actually I think it's the handbook refers to a chemical chemical propellant, which is even more general than either mace or pepper spray. But I think for practical purposes, if you say pepper spray or mace, that should include most of what would come in the door.
I'm just afraid of what would be interpreted as similar items, so pepper spray.
Other
Mr.
chemical
Stevens, are you
propellants?
okay with that? Yes, or other chemical
Well,
propellants.
similar items could, bear spray, right? I don't know how specific we want to get since we are going to rework this thing, but that's just one example.
Would you be okay with putting
other chemical propellants?
Other chemical
Sure,
propellants
sure.
instead
We
of
shouldn't be
similar items?
propelling no chemicals or bringing anything like that, so yeah.
Okay. Okay. So that is the motion on the table.
So that is the motion. We would need a second.
Another second.
Can you read it one more time
Yes.
for me, please? Sorry.
So the board is considering Mr. Stevens' motion, a motion to suspend the relevant portions of the weapons policy, policy 218.1, relating to simple possession of pepper spray, mace, and other chemical propellants, and to make simple possession a level 1 offense, subject to confiscation, effective and including May 18th, 2022, until the conclusion of the 21-22 school year.
Okay.
What is a level 1 offense in comparison to 4? 4 is severe. Taking it down to 1?
So a level 1 offense are offenses that result in a referral to the office.
Like a detention?
And will result in detention, Saturday school, or in-school suspension based on the discipline issues and/or prior infractions. As a point of contrast, a level 2 will result in detention and/or Saturday detention, Saturday school, in-school suspension, or out-of-school suspension. Level 3, as you can imagine, kind of progresses beyond that. Repeated, that one doesn't have the same specific. Out-of-school a level 3 is, level 3 misbehavior may result in school suspension, out of school up to 10 days, a building level hearing and notification of the authorities. Level 4, which is what a weapons violation is right now, is a 10-day out-of-school suspension and a possible board expulsion and referral to police for arrest and filing of charges.
It's also my understanding Pittsburgh Public just changed theirs. Can you reiterate what that was, please?
So Pittsburgh Public has in fact been going through a complete policy review with respect to pepper spray. They are moving or about to adopt or recently adopted a new policy whereby certain items, including pepper spray, if turned over at bag check, are confiscated and without further discipline. Confiscated. So they are taken, they are not returned. I think there are certainly administrative concerns about taking possessions of students. Where do you hold them? There's a lot of logistical, I think,
Can you say that one more time?
challenges. Yes. PPS is moving towards or adopted. I don't work with them directly, but I consulted with one of my colleagues, a policy whereby students who at bag check or voluntarily surrender pepper spray, mace, similar items that are considered like self-protection things, if they turn them over at bag check, that they are those items are confiscated and the student is not disciplined. Or further investigated. That, I think, was an effort, a collaborative effort with the ACLU, the Ed Law Center, parent groups. I mean, they've been working on that, I think, for a number of months. I don't know if that's because they were forced to do so, but I don't believe that's part of the consent order.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
So that is the motion. So we need a second, correct?
Correct.
Just to make sure I'm doing this
Correct.
properly. Okay. Is there a second?
Well, can I say one more thing first? I honestly would rather this be a level 2. A detention for pepper spray, there's been discipline way greater than that. So what are you saying? Every child that comes in with pepper spray, here's a day of detention, have a nice day.
So I think the reason for the level 1, the level 2 has, I don't believe, a limit on the number of days for suspension. I don't know the whole, okay. And the level 1 was for
Detention, Saturday school, or in-school suspension based on the issue and/or prior infraction. So that's the maximum. A level 2 does include out-of-school suspension, and there is not a limit on the number of days.
But level 3 is not
That makes
up to 10 days, right? Level 3 is up to 10 days. So you would assume level 2
Level
would
2
be
would also
less
be.
than, would also be that.
would also be up to 10 days. Also, it's stated that it's for, I still can't find it on my notes now. Sorry.
Simple possession.
Simple possession. So level 1 is simple possession, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
And in simple possession, I'm using those terms to differentiate a student who has that type of item and then uses it to threaten another or actually discharges it. That would not be simple possession. That would take it back into a weapon or into probably into a level 4 offense because it's threatening bodily harm to another. Serious threats on students. So that's purposeful. The use of that term, simple possession.
Policy 218.1, the weapons policy,
Yes.
currently is the PSBA recommended policy that we adopted. And the reason why pepper spray was in there was because it's used to incapacitate somebody. That's why police use it.
And that would be Pennsylvania School Board Association policy.
It was adopted in 2010, though.
Are we in the discussion
Well, I
phase?
think we need that second, and then you
Yeah,
can
I was gonna,
Okay.
that's what I thought.
get
Okay.
into the meeting.
Okay, so do we have a second for that motion? I will second it. Okay. Board discussion.
To the point Ms. Keough was just making, yeah, I mean, this was adopted in 2010. The world's different. I mean, we're in 2022. Pittsburgh Public Schools, much bigger than we are. They feel like they can handle it. I give us credit. I feel like we could as well. I mean, in this particular situation, she's working late. She has it on her person for protection. She gets up early. It sounds like comes to school. She has it on her, and it's a level 4. To me, that's egregious. It's ridiculous. And we, as a board, I get up here to, make common sense policies, and I think this is one that could benefit the district. So.
You do realize we have students that have been suspended this past year for the same exact thing, and they've served 10 days.
And
How are you going to justify that to those students or those parents?
A great
They
question.
may be in the same situation, or for something else that somebody forgot was in their pocket and came in.
100%. The board in the fall, which I was
I
not
promise
a part
we
of.
will get to public discussion. Sorry.
Oh, I was going to say the board in the fall, which I was not a part of, did make the amendment, deviated from the 45 days. That was, part of the policy, dropped it down to 10, which I believe was a missed opportunity to have this discussion. Therefore, now that I am on the board, it's time to have it. No more kicking the can down the road.
And there were mitigating circumstances that we can't discuss as a board back then, out in the public.
Sure. I think this is, and to the respect of that,
I think Dr. Pasquarella had already stated that the initial policies at the start of this year was what? How many days?
In your
in the policy.
In the policy, it says 1 year, I'm
Right.
paraphrasing, is what you get for a weapons violation,
Okay.
or the superintendent is her discretion could reduce that.
Okay.
That's what the policy says.
So up until that point, Dr. P, how many 1 years have you gave out in comparison to 45? Was there more 45 disciplinary issues than 1 year? So what was your precedent?
Well, I'll just say it like this. I was consistent. I'm not sure if solicitor, if we're allowed to speak in general on that or not.
I think we could discuss, so that was, I'm pretty sure they made that a public hearing. Or was that a closed hearing?
It's a public hearing.
It was a public hearing, and so whatever your recommendation as part of your testimony was part of a public record, and ultimately the board's vote and resolution of that, I think those two components are public in nature.
I could legally repeat
But
my
the board
recommendation.
discussion was in private. Solicitor Turnbull?
Yes, the rationale of the board was held in an executive session. It would be my recommendation that whatever those internal communications were within the context of executive session remain so.
So the final outcome is public?
Correct.
Okay, so in our policy, it states 1 year, correct?
It does.
And your recommendation was,
In the public hearing, you're saying I'm allowed to state that?
Yes.
All right. It was 45 days.
okay? And the board's decision on that was how many days?
The outcome was 10 days.
Okay.
Was the public vote and resolution of
So,
that matter.
so I have a couple things to say at some point, but just in relation to that in particular, with the inconsistencies of how it has gone this year, discipline is typically rendered by the principals and the superintendent. However, it seems to be that there has been some discrepancy, and I do think that a lot of that discrepancy is probably due to the fact that, as you can see right now, we are literally looking at policies as we are sitting here. Things change in the world, and I think I said that already earlier. And so I think we have to be very cognizant of things like this that are changing and adapting, making sure that we are keeping all of our children of the school safe. And so anything, I'm just speaking personally, anything that the principals or the superintendent are doing as far as discipline goes, if they are following the handbook to the lay of the law that was written for them or that they chose to write at the beginning of the school year, it makes sense to me because we're trying to have some consistency. However, I will state my own personal opinion. Because things are changing and because there are school boards that are changing their decisions on things like this, and because we are so close to a monumental life-changing moment in someone's life, I do believe that it's something that needs to be very seriously considered, because to me, those two things are a weapon. There's very different terminologies of weapons, and I think that's why these things are being discovered and looked into and evaluated, and clearly we're looking into them at the moment, so it's going to take a little bit of time to get to that point before we can make a vote. However, to wrap up my comment, I guess, my comment is that we are in a position where we have to be flexible enough to adapt with the changing world and have a heart for a situation in which we've heard this evening.
I move for a point of order to recess for 5 minutes.
I will second.
For research.
For personal comfort.
Can I second? Oh, just for her?
For everyone.
Oh, Lord. Okay. I will second. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 All those opposed? Motion passes. Are we? No, we don't have to. Okay. We don't have to. She just has to use the restroom.
I thought we were.
I thought so too. I'm sorry. I didn't know.
This is hard to get. I wouldn't have.
okay, but right, everything else is the
I'm
same.
not calling you 2 hours. Well,
I'm looking, do you, are you able to have this system? Yeah, this is, okay, so this, ours is, ours is 2010. So this is 20, right, so here's the difference. The definition of weapons
Oh, I know, yeah.
is different. And it
Don't really need to.
goes to like, I mean, we, ours is, ours is.
I got 10% on my phone. Let me call my sister. Hey babe, could you do this for me? I'm still at my meeting and it's recess and I have to go back in there. Could you call him, just make sure everything's good? I can't. All right.
And if this happened, she wouldn't be having this discussion. And that's just the fact. If it was 1 day sooner. Right. If it was 1 day sooner, we wouldn't be having this discussion. And the change of a policy like this requires much more thought than we're able to give it in one night.
I agree with that.
Huh?
I'm sorry, guys. I thought we were going.
We thought we were about to. So sorry. I was like, I just need 5 minutes, guys.
I can't.
Well, I know the truth.
Oh, I was going to say because I still have an iron bladder, even though I talk to the kids, but everybody's different. You know?
Mine has to do with my endometriosis.
Oh, that's, yeah.
Trust me, I don't like it.
And painful. No, thank you.
Give somebody a veto vote.
Give somebody a what to
Veto vote.
I was wondering about it.
Veto vote.
Then you get to talk.
Tom?
Give somebody a veto vote. I like your style. You're talking about weapons policy. There's no way we can think through what the right thing is with the weapons policy in one house. And I know there's people had good intentions. 3 people to bring them tomorrow. They're not. We're talking about changing it. Think about this. You didn't carry us. Yes, this is happening. Thank you.
Are we good?
Can we resume? All right, sit down, guys.
Okay, we are reconvening the voting meeting of April, May 18th, 2022. And we are going to start or continue board discussion with Ms. Mueller. Thank you very much. She found the updated PSBA current policy. So if you wouldn't mind, or I can read it, it doesn't matter. Or just the significant differences.
All right, so it appears that I'm going to put them side by side. The purpose is the same. The definition of weapon is significantly different. The PSBA, the model PSBA policy as it currently is presented, which is dates its most recent iteration is from 2021. Weapon does not specifically include the words mace or pepper spray or other tool or so rather it has just a limited number of items that it identifies as a weapon, but then has an expansive clause at the end that says and other tool, instrument, or implement capable of inflicting serious bodily injury. That language comes from the school code, I believe. I think that's specific. And I do believe that we have a similar catch-all at the end of ours, actually right after pepper spray and mace, that mirrors that and also adds lookalikes of all of those similar things. So that I think that's a significant difference. Possession looks generally the same without having a lot of time to put them side by side. Authority. Authority looks largely the same, although it does, the model PSBA policy appropriately has some additional language about students with disabilities and kind of at least infers a different, that there is an analysis that goes along with students with disabilities who are found in possession of a weapon. Delegation of responsibility on the model is 2 paragraphs, and we have at least 6 or 7. I'd have to spend a little bit more time looking at them both to know if there are measurable differences. To be honest, I would be surprised if there are practically much differences, although we have, and then guidelines, transfer students. The model policy has a couple more paragraphs about weapons. It has some additional language. One is optional about possession or discharge of a firearm within 1,000 feet of a school ground is prohibited. That looks like something that you can opt into, although I would say generally the law is the law, so whether you adopt a federal law, so whether you put it in your policy or not, it exists. And the guidelines of the model also say an exception to this policy may be made by the superintendent, who shall prescribe special conditions or administrative regulations to be followed. And an annual announcement. I'm sure there are some things in that you do, but aren't specifically in your policy. Transfer students looks generally the same. There is some additional footnotes from the Gun-Free School Zone Act, which was found unconstitutional, and there's a reference to the school code and a replica of a weapon, and the definition there. So there are, it appears to me that the most marked difference is in the definition of weapon. I'm sure over time, the district, for whatever, I mean, probably for very good reasons, thought that more words and definition was helpful to the administration rather than fewer and ambiguity, and so that's a difference.
And our current one was adopted when?
January 20th, 2010, I think is our most recent.
Okay. And this current one is from 21. That's a lot of years. Okay. Any other board discussion?
I just have a question to Ms. Kehoe and Ms. Fisher. I'm not pointing you out just only because you're the only 2 that were from the last board. Besides the disciplinary precedent set throughout the year, has there been issues in the past that have prevented people from attending milestone events because of suspension due to choices that they've made?
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Has policy been changed in lieu of that?
No. Not that I'm aware of.
We actually had rule last year that 2 days before graduation.
Is this information allowed to be shared in
don't
public?
mention
Yeah, I'm not gonna say what it was,
I just wanna
but,
make sure.
but ended up could not walk at graduation either.
And again, those circumstances are mitigating and pull at our heartstrings. And there are details we can't discuss as board members. I did want to ask Mrs. Miller if she's able to look for us. We sent a communication out in the fall in regards to pepper spray. Are you able to, it was a blast, I know. And I'm putting you on the spot for that. I was trying to look too, so I'll keep trying to.
I don't know that ever went out. I remember it was
Let me see here if I can.
While you look at that, can I?
Yeah, it's
Madam
free
President.
board discussion, yeah.
You know, well, I've heard a number of people say that, you know, times have changed, and that's certainly true. But I don't think safety is any less a concern. In fact, I would argue that safety is more a concern, which is why we voted to have middle school metal detectors put in earlier this year. So I'm not opposed to revisiting some of these policies, but I am concerned about our wisdom in changing this kind of policy that could potentially affect the safety of the school in such a short amount of time. I believe the subject requires much more thought than we're able to give it tonight. That's number one. Number two, or that's number two. Number three, I did not hear any verbiage, and maybe I'm mistaking, in the motion that she gave about either deterring or confiscating these, so in the new verbiage, right?
I asked for that to be, yeah, I asked for
Okay,
that to
you
be
asked
added.
for it to be added,
Yeah.
okay, because I didn't hear it the first time, so.
Yeah, it is
Subject to confiscation.
But even with that verbiage, I really am tentative to, this is a large decision that affects the safety of our school for the remaining 10 days. And 10 days under duress or could be a long 10 days. They deal with safety concerns every day. We get emailed on them. So to tempt that further with a short amount of discussion, I question the wisdom on that. Now, I certainly feel terrible about this certain situation because it's clear your daughter had no ill intent. But the next 2 or 3 people that try us on may not be, their intent may not be so innocent. And that's all I have to add.
Thank you. Any other board comments?
Why not? Again, I just want to make it clear. The policy says 1 year. Superintendent was doing 45 days for a while. Then the fall came. Then all of a sudden the board came up with a decision to make it 10 days. Then there's a correspondence that went out that nobody got. And then now we're having a decision right now, still trying to figure out is 10 days right. Clearly, if safety, and it is, the utmost importance to the board, it should have been 1 year all year.
Mr. Cephas, would we be having this discussion if this judgment was passed 15, 20 days ago?
Absolutely. A broken policy is a
We
broken policy.
would be voting on this tonight?
If I was on the board back in the fall
No, I'm not talking about
or
fall.
20 days ago,
I'm talking about now.
yeah,
Yes. If this situation happened 15 days ago, would we be tonight
yes,
discussing?
1,000%. Why? Because look what's happening now.
So you're saying we would have discussed this? Because clearly I can't discuss students, but I know we've had infractions over the last few weeks.
And I'm being transparent. I say yes.
And I'm being transparent too.
I say yes. We would have still had this conversation because what if a student accidentally brought pepper spray on the last day of school?
We've had, I mean, again, I can't discuss situations.
So in my
but-
opinion, that doesn't make it right.
No, I don't disagree that
It
it's
doesn't
not
make it right.
but
We're going off of a 12-year-old, adopted policy in which has been updated to 2021. And so happened, this family is in the middle of this. And it's not it's not 100% about, it's about all the students who are working and maybe in a situation where they need protection. I get the sense that we're treating pepper spray like firearms a little bit, or as if she was proposing to use it or students are using it. There's physical fights happening.
right, and
There's more
again, we
vapes
can't
in the
discuss
schools.
the terms, but have we had situations where a chemical agent have been involved? And whether it be an employee, a student, so me wrapping my head around trying to make a decision, it's
That's why we're having it in public, because I believe in transparency. If you disagree as a board member, put it on the record in front of the people who put us in these seats.
absolutely.
So it's not, listen, guys, I don't get paid to be up here. So win or lose or draw, I'm fighting for what's right. And if you feel like, hey, keep a broken 12-year-old policy in place until the summer, vote that way. But I'm not.
Well,
And that's
an
okay.
unfair, that's an unfair take. I'm clearly not voting for a 12-year-old broken policy. That wasn't what I said. What I said is that and I think the level of this debate is clearly displaying the need for additional thought on this subject. And I don't believe that something in this magnitude can be worked out in the course of one evening without serious thought about the pebble in the pond effect and how it affects any number of other things, up to and including our security protocols every morning and every afternoon.
God forbid, what if it happens tomorrow? Another student, and then another student who's been good their whole
It's
school.
happened before.
But it doesn't make it right. There's a lot of things that happened before that is idiotic from a policy standpoint. At some time, I believe somebody got to stand up and say enough.
So, Mr. Carpenter, I see what you're saying about, changing a policy at, the ninth hour. Literally, it's almost 9 o'clock, and it's difficult to change a policy. But the motion at hand is to temporarily suspend the motion. So
which
it's a
would
little bit
change the
different.
policy for the remainder of the year. correct?
9 days.
It would suspend the policy currently, change it to a different level, but the actual, so the way I'm thinking in my head, and this is a very difficult decision. That's why we're having so much discussion. That's
Very
why we're,
serious
Yes.
matters that we're talking about.
but we're still, unless I'm misunderstanding, in the motion, it's still stating that we are still confiscating that as it comes in. Correct?
Yes.
And what if one gets through bag check?
Well, wouldn't that be the same thing as today, though? Like, I guess what I'm saying is, no matter what level it's referred to as, we're still, and that was why I was so asking so much for that to be added, is so that is still confiscated. So the safety of the students safety of the students has not changed, just the level that,
Of the offense.
yes. I just wanted to clarify that. I'm not saying one way or another. I'm just, so not necessarily changing, it's suspending. Well, it's changing the level, not the discipline.
Dr. Pascarella,
Or not the
I
procedure.
assume in your training over the years, you've received safety training regarding the day-to-day operations of the school.
I've received some, yes.
Okay. I have to ask you again, could you restate your position on the change as proposed?
I do not recommend it. I do not, as the superintendent, recommend the amended motion. Is that what you're asking?
Yes.
Right, I do not. And I want that on the record as well.
One last question, Dr. Pascarella, if I could. If this were to be passed tonight, how would you reconcile your adjustment to safety protocols tomorrow morning? At all four of your buildings?
Well, to the point I think that's trying to be made here is that either way, you would still confiscate these, correct? But I would tell you that in one regards, there is a point to be made, not saying it's correct, and I haven't had a long time to think and prepare about my exact statement to you, but I would say this. If somebody's just going to take something off of you, is that the same fear that you would have to not bring that in as if they said you would be expelled for 45 days? There's bus rides, there's bag checks, there's the parking lot, there's a lot of other places before you get to bag check that you'd be carrying that. So once it's with you and you only got it confiscated there, anything could happen from here to there on a bus. It could go off by accident. Somebody else could grab it that didn't intend. You're just there. What are you going to do when they grab it off of you? Try to get it back, but what if they take it? What if they steal it? There's a lot of factors that go into it. My recommendation for the safety of the entire school, even though some situations are very difficult, is I think changing this policy at any point would not be my recommendation. And so to answer your question about what we would do different, we would try to do the very best we can like we do every day with the current procedures and policies we have. But I don't know what major change we're going to be able to make because of your doing this. I do think a lot of people would remember and consider a lot more if they were nervous rather than just getting that confiscated for whatever it may cost to get another one, and I don't even know that price, versus, oh my goodness, I'm going to get expelled. No, if I'm nervous about this, I keep it, and if somebody just takes it, I buy another one and try to remember next time. What if somebody takes it off of somebody? As I said before, there's a ton of examples where that could happen. So nothing's perfect, I understand that, but I stand behind my recommendation.
Thank you. So just for one other item of clarification, that communication, Mrs. Fisher, you were talking about was not sent.
I was just looking back to September 15th, and I'll.
Unless you found it. She was not able to find it. And Mrs.
Per
Miller
Kathy,
sent.
would you please help draft a blast to send out and remind parents of School Board Policy 218.1? And this is from the board secretary. If possible, I would send this blast out before tonight's board meeting. I looked that.
Do you have the blast?
No.
Like, do you have the blast that was sent?
I read back.
Okay.
Found back to what Mrs. Mueller had sent
Yes, that's what we were looking
to Solicitor Turnbull and copied me on it.
So we haven't yet found the blast that was actually sent to the community, is the problem.
Right.
Just
but
for clarification.
Just a
letting you know.
reminder, in the beginning of the year, and let me clarify, does each parent sign, the student sign for the student handbook and?
Yes.
Yes.
Yep.
I'm just clarifying that for, so
Just
every
because you said-
year at the beginning of the year.
Just because you said the blast was sent.
Oh,
just wanted to make sure
I was
people
just,
weren't
that's why I was trying to
looking
go back and look.
Yeah.
That's what I was doing.
I know one of
I
my
don't want them
questions
looking
on
for
it,
the
why I
blast
wasn't
if
as
it's
in
not there.
favor of reminding people on a blast is, so we were just going to send, I'll just speak for myself at the time. We're going to send a blast out to remind people, again, that they shouldn't bring pepper spray as a weapon.
Yeah.
That was my concern. We should be saying you don't bring anything and you should follow the entire handbook. I don't understand from where I sat, why would we specifically just say don't bring pepper spray when it says anything else that could cause harm? I mean, don't bring anything that could cause harm. So if we were going to send a reminder out, my position is that you would say, don't bring anything that could cause harm, and matter of fact, don't violate anything in the handbook that you already signed.
So the
It'd be like
decision was
repeat.
not to send.
No, well, hold on now.
Okay.
I'm telling you what my recommendation was.
Okay.
Whether the board president at the time directed somebody else to send it or not, I don't know. I'm
Okay.
speaking for myself.
Okay.
I did ask for the solicitor to assist for a blast, and I'll read, I'm Kathy. Per Kathy, would you please help draft a blast to send out and remind parents of the school board policy? So just so we're clear.
Whether
I
it
did
specifically
ask.
went out, I don't know.
I'm looking, I
don't-
can't find it either.
But to me,
Was that blast referencing the change to 10 days of
This-
suspension? Was that?
This is just reinforcing
Yes.
what 218.1 policy was, because we can't.
and my point on that was, if the intent, and I'm going to be careful as I say it, I know publicly you said I could say what my run recommendation was, but if the intent was to put something out there to then go ahead and go back to my original recommendations from that point forward, I wasn't in favor of that till the following year. Because even though it was my recommendation, once we've done something different for somebody else, would not be fair for the remainder of that year to give other people something different. That was my opinion, by a simple reminder. Because this next person's going to come up and say, reminder or not, everyone had access to that handbook. Everybody signed the handbook. And they're going to come back to another hearing and say, why you do that. My opinion was, if you are going to change it back to where I'm making the decision and following the policy consistently, the reminder should come in between the year. You understand what I mean? And everyone should sign it accordingly. But to do that, even my own self, then to start to give discipline, even though it may have been inconsistent in what I wanted, I didn't think that would be fair for the remainder of the year. So I went ahead and continued to operate underneath the new.
It does seem like you were consistent in your way of being the leader of the school district the entire year. Your viewpoints did not change.
They did not change, that's correct. However, if a decision is made outside of me and above me, then I'm going to operate that consistently for the next person, even if it's not what I want. I'll go on record telling you that it's not what I want, as I did in that public hearing, in which I'm allowed to speak to. My recommendation was 45 days. It has been for 10 years.
Solicitor Turnbull, not to violate executive session information, but in regards to personnel, there were mitigating circumstances that were discussed. Are we able to clarify that you were present for those discussions in regards to previous situation related to this? And you can say no if we're not.
I'm trying to make sure that I'm following. So I believe that, there were that during the public hearing that there were, there was a record created that the board used to make its decision, and that included input from district administrators through direct examination and cross-examination, as well as direct testimony presented by the family on their own behalf, and the cross-examination that I did of their witnesses, and that record in its totality included all sorts of stuff, right? It included the policy, the genesis of the policy, the application of the policy, and that ultimately the board, taking the totality of that information, made the decision that it did. And there was no reason, ultimately, for either the family to appeal that, and that's a position that the board continued to communicate either directly or indirectly, I think, through the administration after that time.
Thank you.
I think the original, I'm trying to get back to the original thing. So just so everybody's clear in the public, that blast was not sent. So I don't want people going to look for it.
And I reiterated it and said, I sent a communication
Yes.
asking for that.
Okay, just want to make sure so that no one's looking
And
for a
I'm
blast
making
that
sure
did
that
not go
my
out.
bases were covered as well.
Okay.
But again, I will reiterate that in the beginning of the year, parents are asked to sign
No, I
student
told,
handbook.
yes, right. Yep.
Was there a burden on the district to, since a new president was set in the fall with 10 days, and we're referencing 10 days, was there a burden on the district to send a amendment to the policy that parents signed at the beginning of the school year?
No, because our policy doesn't spell out a specific number of days for many of our infractions. It gives, and we showed that a little bit in those levels. It shows a range, and the policy is built in a way that provides for some discretion and some flexibility. But with that said, there is an importance and there's a value that we always recognize in fairness and justice to applying rules when possible, as in a way that is even-handed at least. And the practice has been, as Dr. Pascarella stated, to approach some of these things as a what rather than a who, and that is with generalized numbers of days assigned for different types of infractions. There are other things that we do the same thing for. We're talking about pepper spray here, but there are others too.
So clearly, it was looked at as less than in the fall to take 35 days off and for 10 days to be issued moving forward thereafter. And I understand, Dr. B, you're following your own, what you consider as consistency at 45-minute change in the fall, but 35 days to come off of that. To me, if I'm a student that know a friend who had 45 in the fall, and then all of a sudden it happens to me and I got 10, just hypothetically, to me that doesn't sound like we're taking it any more serious.
And we are still following an 11-year-old policy. Any other board discussion?
I just want a clarification. Nobody had 45 days in the fall for this. And because we can't discuss the details of it, there were mitigating circumstances why the board voted at that time to drop it from 45 to 10. And I'm going to tell you honestly, I was one of the ones that said no, even then.
To what? No to what?
To dropping it down to the 10, but that's not how the board.
Was there anybody who
majority
received
went.
45 days in August, September, or October leading up to that
No,
circumstance?
because we started it towards the end of August, and it occurred within the first week or two of school.
We can't just.
And second of all, we have to be, I'm just going to chime this in, okay, because what I heard you say, I'm going to say what I say. The policy, as I understand it, solicitor, says 1 year.
Correct.
For a weapon. The list of the weapons are in there. And in addition to that, it says anything else that could cause seriously harm, which is probably associated, I would assume, in my knowledge, to the school code of some sort. What I'm saying to you, the policy continues in the next sentence to say that the superintendent of schools has the right, if they want to reduce that and show leniency for a variety of factors. I can't speak to every superintendent. I could speak for myself. If I'm going to show leniency for anyone who takes an agreement, and when you take an agreement for certain situations, they do not go, they're in lieu of expulsion, you don't have a hearing. So before we say something didn't or did not happen, I'm just going to go on the record, when you're talking about weapons as a whole, you may not have known about all of those, or you may have just approved those in an agreement afterwards, but you wouldn't have heard about it in a hearing. You would have approved the agreement. Okay? The board would have approved the agreement. So that's what I'm saying. The policy, whatever you want to say, is the policy that was followed. It says 1 year. I have the decision to do that. When I'm going to make a decision, I think you need to be, I'm going to speak for myself. I am fair and consistent. So if I'm going to reduce for one for taking the deal, I'm going to reduce for others, unless there's different circumstances. If the circumstances in general are the same, which I haven't found very many unless you're trying to use a weapon, that might be different. But whether the weapon is on this premises, you have to be consistent in what you're recommending. I have always been consistent, as I said that you said I could say in the hearing in front of the news and everyone else, that I was consistent in my recommendation and made that recommendation accordingly. I understand that there are other issues where sometimes things happen. I am a superintendent of schools, and there's a lot of students and a lot of employees. We'll just leave it at that. I can't answer, and we can't discuss every single thing in every agreement or any personnel matter out in the public, for that matter, as I understand it, solicitor. But what I am saying is, I am consistent. That's what I was trying to say. So, I just want to be clear that that was always my recommendation until something changed. For all those reasons that we can't discuss, I understand what you're saying, but I believe that's dangerous to discuss them from where I sit, because we're talking about children, and that is not public, and employees, and that's not public knowledge. So I think at this given point, sometimes that's understood, but what I'm saying to you is when that shifted and it did not go my way, because that is in the public hearing and in the notes, I felt that you have to then be consistent even outside of what you want for the remainder of a year to be fair to everyone else.
And I want
Thank you for that clarification.
Mrs. Rasko, I'm
Oh, you're
sorry.
fine.
I just wanted to clarify for Solicitor Turnbull, when I was reading our email, that it was in no way an indication towards you that we didn't follow through on something. I do recall we had more than one discussion on the blast and so on and so forth.
And that's the only reason for me stating that, Ms. Fisher, is because
Oh, no, and you're
it was
right.
totally up to you whether you wanted to send that as a board
Right.
president, but I know that it may
We
not
had
have gone out
conversation.
because we had conversation about how
We
I
did.
did.
We did. Thank you for
No, you did not recommend it.
refreshing
Right.
my old
Okay.
memory.
Perfect. Any other board discussion?
I guess I do have one more question. Logistically, for this young lady that has succeeded, what will her graduation look like? Will her name be called if she's not permitted on our premises? Is that a reasonable question?
I think it is a reasonable question. I personally would have to look and see how this was handled in the past, and ask, Mr. King and Ms. Zupsik to, get back to me on that answer on how we've done it in the past. Right now, in this very moment, I'm not 100% sure exactly how that worked. I think that's just the honest answer. So I need to get with them and see how that was handled in the past and how it could be recommended on handling in the future.
Any other discussion? Okay. It is now time for public comment on this agenda item only. Do I need to say anything else? Okay. Anybody who wishes to speak may come forward.
Tammy Girardi, 215 Brookside Drive, Baden, Pennsylvania. So it is my understanding that it was initially 1 year. I was told today when I met with the vice principal that that is no longer policy, and it is up to 10 days and up to 10 days. So why, with all of her credentials, why are we not considering this as a case-by-case basis? That's my first question. She had no intent to harm anybody. She never has. She never would. She walked in, did not try to hide it or conceal it. I could see if she tried to get away with it, hid it in her pocket and tried to get away and not let anybody see what she was doing. But she was out in the open. I mean, it was very clear that nothing was intended to harm anybody, nor would she ever do that. That would never cross her mind. And I don't care if it's her or anybody else. I totally agree with safety in the school. But everybody's case is individualized. And you, Mr. Prasparella, have the choice to do what is right for our school and for our community. And I really hope that you can sleep tonight if you make with whatever decision that you do make. I really do, because I believe you have 2 children of your own. How would you feel in this situation? Would you want your child going to work, closing up a store at 9:30, 10 o'clock p.m. in the dark, and leaving there without pepper spray in her hand? And then she tries to do the right thing, get up in the morning and go to school the very next day, right? And do the right thing and be obedient. And she accidentally forgets one time out of the 13 years she's been in this school district, she forgets something, and she is reprimanded for it, and she can't be recognized for all of her accomplishments. I can't see why you can't consider a case-by-case basis for this. Other schools have done the same thing, and they have made changes. You have students in the school who haven't fulfilled their requirements for graduation, but exceptions have been made, haven't they? They're made all the time. But why not in this case? Why? Do you have an answer? Sleep well tonight. Thank you.
Is there anybody else that would like to speak on this agenda item only?
I'm Debbie Conover. I live at 126 Bradford Park Road in Baden. Tammy's a good friend of mine. My son is in her class. He's graduating as well. Honestly, I don't even come to meetings because it's just not my thing. I'm not here to aggravate, to bring up trivial items. But I feel passionately. I was actually in my car driving home when I heard what happened. This is an exemplary family. Look, she didn't put this on Facebook. Try to find it. I'm gonna get upset because if you don't investigate the circumstances, consider the situation, you're destroying a child. I'll be honest with you. Imagine you're second in your class. You've worked hard. They're a quiet family. They didn't bring an entourage. Okay? I think you're all reasonable, intelligent people. You're here to serve. You're here for the students, right? That's what we're all here for. I think what was done in the past, whether it was right or wrong, I mean, only God knows. He's the ultimate judge. But you can't look at the past all the time. To be progressive, you got to look to the future. You have to look to the present, what you have in front of you. Two wrongs don't make a right. So just because you did this yesterday, do you wake up and make the same mistakes over and over? What do they always say? One mistake, like, shame on me, but do it again. This is your chance to actually make a great decision as a school district. You don't want to see this on the 11 o'clock news. Her daughter, I mean, she has worked hard. Never a problem. You can ask Mr. King, I'm sure he could vouch for that. Mr. Pasquarelli, you have access to all the records. We're just asking, I don't think she's asking that you change a policy. Maybe that you just consider doing like a little more investigative work, not just saying, okay, so you brought pepper spray, you're 20 days. You brought pepper spray, you're 20 days. Well, the cases may be different. This child may have come in with intent to use it. Her daughter was closing a store, Plato's Closet. Call her store manager, verify the facts. Got in her car, it was attached. I would do that for my daughter. You see it on the news. Look at the sex trafficking. I'm not going to go down that road, but it's out there, and it's true, boys and girls. Her parents gave her pepper spray. It's not a weapon. You can buy it at Walmart. It's not a handgun. How can you even, that's not apples to apples. Mace is not even pepper spray. Mace, you actually have to go and get a license for it. Pepper spray, kids could buy it. I could spray you with hairspray and incapacitate you just as well. Are you gonna ban pepper spray? Ban hairspray? Come on, folks. Have a heart. It's not just for her. I would be here for anyone that I heard this. Her and I aren't great friends. We're neighbors, to be honest with you. It's not that I don't like her, but we don't hang out. I never do this. But all we're asking that you do this for anyone. You put maybe in your language that, hey, maybe this should be kind of on a case-by-case basis. Maybe not just one person making a decision. It takes a village sometimes, not a village of idiots, okay? I'm not calling you idiots, but I'm just saying, like, in general. So Imagine what this is going to do to her or any kid in that situation. She will have this forever. She has to live with this for the rest of her life because she went to work, her parents gave her pepper spray to keep her safe. Wouldn't you want that for your own kids? You want to keep them safe, right? All kids safe. It was on her keychain. She drove to school this morning. She wasn't on a bus. She wasn't trying to bother. They said, hey, put your stuff out. She puts it out. And then, oh my God, shit. I honestly hope that somebody would do this for you if this ever happens to you or something similar, or for your kids. Anyone have a comment?
Go ahead. If quite a few people didn't give me a second, third, and fourth chance, I wouldn't be sitting in front of you today. It's quite that simple. I'm from the inner city of Pittsburgh. I could have been thrown to the trash for many mistakes that I've made. But I sit here before you because I was given opportunities to make things right. And people use common sense if that still exists. Last time I checked, that's free. And that's the angle that I'm looking from it as, is that I've done worse than bring pepper spray to school, and I still graduated, went and got my bachelor's and master's and all that, because I was given a chance, okay? And I still remember my graduation. Didn't go to prom, but I still had opportunity to go to prom, right? That wasn't taken away from me, and I understand how important that is. And I have 4 kids in the district, and this reminds me of one of mine. Like, they're awesome. They don't get in trouble. But they make it to 12th grade, make a mistake, you're gonna see she gonna walk across the stage. I'm sorry. That don't sit well.
I'd like to thank both of you for your passion. If you don't know, I have 2 daughters that go here. One that's about to graduate with yours. So I've already put myself in your shoes, and it is a very frustrating I think we're all frustrated, right? That's why we're here, and we're not motioning to get out of here. This is important. But a couple difficulties, I think, exist. One, it's obviously a mistake in this situation. However, I think Dr. Pascarella and his staff, what we need to be, I think, sensitive to is the fact that a lot of people, when they get caught, say, it was a mistake, wasn't mine, right? And then how do you disseminate what's true and what's not, right? So investigation,
Right.
fair enough, but you know, we ask a lot of our scholars and our teachers. My wife's a teacher. She's now, you know, takes care of hygiene and a COVID specialist and a teacher and a security, you know, gets trained in security. So I think that's one part of the difficulty. The second part of the difficulty is I think we all are really sensitive to a zero tolerance violence policy at school and weapons policy at school. I mean, and yesterday, I think we were all on the same page. The importance of your daughter's situation has brought us into a different discussion. But yesterday, I think we probably would have agreed on more points and disagreed. But I believe strongly in that we want to be careful of the precedent that we set on what's okay to bring to school and what's not, because we know that we find a lot of stuff already. We know we deal with a lot of stuff, and we don't always see it as parents. His team deals with it every day. So I think we just need to be sensitive to that. And the third thing that, as you're talking, and again, thank you for your passion, that I think we need to be sensitive to is this is kind of a one-off in that if this had happened 2 days ago, I know some people have said that we probably would be talking about it tonight, but I disagree. I don't think it would have came up tonight if this had happened 2 days ago. because she'd be graduating, right? So I think we really need to think through. What makes it difficult is that we're proposing adjusting an entire school's policy regarding safety and weapons, asking us to make that decision. You're not asking, I'm just saying, in 2 hours or less, eradicating or changing years of proven protocol over weapons and zero tolerance to accommodate a one-off situation. I would, if it were me, I would rather approach that one-off situation a different way than adjusting the entire school's policy without more thought.
Well-
Not that I'm opposed to changing policy, that's what we're here for, but it's my opinion that policies like this, we need to think about the pebble in the pond repercussions of a larger change like this before we make them. So I just don't feel like we have that capacity for throughput on thought tonight, given our time.
Well, I understand, Mr. Carpenter, what you're saying, and I appreciate it. However, I don't believe she asked you to necessarily change policy.
I agree, she did.
Right. That was what you know, the board
It's
as
what
a
we've
whole.
been- We're
Right.
trying to figure out a way
And
to
I
accommodate.
agree. I mean, your policy, obviously, I mean, if it's from 2010, you know, the
don't
world
think
has
weapons
changed.
are
Who
any
would have
less-
ever thought we would be wearing masks and be afraid of a virus?
Okay.
But
Thank you.
You're
Thank you
welcome.
for your coming up and your time.
Thank you.
I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Anybody else like to say anything? Anybody from the board have anything else they would like to add? I do want to just clarify that the board only has the authority to change a policy. The administration is the one, they have the authority to actually give out the discipline. So that is all we are able to vote on tonight, is changing a policy of the school board. So with that being said, we're ready for roll call, correct? Can I have a roll call, please? Wait, I'm sorry.
Yeah,
Can you
can you
reread it one more time?
Repeat the motion, please.
Yes.
Motion, it is recommended to approve the temporary suspension of the relevant portions of the weapons policy, policy 218.1, relative to the simple possession of pepper spray, mace, and other chemical propellants, and to make simple possession of the same a level 1 offense subject to confiscation, effective and including May 18th, 2022, until the conclusion of the 21-22 school year. This requires a majority of the board to adopt.
Are we good for a roll call? Okay, roll call, please.
Mr. Carpenter? Mr. Cephas?
Absolutely.
Mrs. Fisher?
No, and I would just like to clarify, this has absolutely zero to do just with one specific situation. We've had to make these difficult decisions in the past, and I, in order to be able to lay my head down at night, must treat each and every case that I've judged in the past with the same neutral decision. So my answer is no.
Ms. Fitzko?
I would just like to say that I am very sorry for your situation. However, I cannot vote to change a policy that would put other students at risk. My vote is no.
Mr. Keeber?
Yes.
Mrs. Kehoe?
No.
Mrs. Smith?
I'm going to vote yes.
Mr. Zachi?
Yes.
Mrs. Ramasco?
Yes.
Motion carries.
We are going to motion to adjourn to executive session for personnel and other legal matters. The board may return to take. We will return to take further action if needed.
And adjourn.
And adjourn the meeting. Thank you all for coming tonight.